Okay, got a new topic for a Monday morning. And as a lot of my discussions, well, not all of them, some of them are political and some of things that go on in the world. So, talk about those in my weekly podcast. And then there's things that I buy or I'm doing, and, I make videos of those. So, by the way, like and subscribe. If you like this stuff, whether you agree with me or not, if you find it entertaining, leave a comment. But hit like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow the channel a little bit. But anyway, so today's discussion will be around I allow myself to get drawn into idiotic arguments a lot on the internet, as a lot of people are wont to do. And it always amazes me. And we talked about this in the podcast about the fanboy mentality. It exists. It exists in sports. It's the same. It's a common psychological mechanism. People are tribal by nature. We want to be with groups that are like us, that think like us, that look like us, that have things in common with us. And there's probably some caveman DNA at work, because that's what protected you from danger, was pooling resources with like-minded people and getting along in a community, and things like that. And people that were different than you were potentially a threat. And so you have this innate aversion to things. And it's carried over into sports. It's carried into brands. And it manifests itself today in this type of fanboy mentality that I call it, and others have called it. And I think part of that is taking that caveman DNA, that part of our nature that wants us to put things into boxes and groups and sort them to make sense of them and assess whether this is good, bad, danger, whatever. But then you throw in the marketing aspect and how people attach themselves to a brand name to get self-confidence. I'm an Apple guy. I'm not. Although I do like some of their products and I own them. But I prefer Android for most things. But there are people that are just diehard. I have Apple. Everything in my house has Apple. My Prius has 18 Apple stickers on it because I want everyone to know that I'm an Apple guy. And as a result, you limit your choices in the market. You buy things that may be actually inferior in function, that cost more money and give you less value, because your identity is the Apple guy, or you're a Chevy guy, or you're a Ford guy, or a Glock, or a SIG guy. And part of that fanboy mentality is when you sign on to that brand, when you attach your sense of self-worth and your ego to that image that you perceive that brand to have, that you hope then subconsciously will transfer some of that status to you because you're their guy, they're your brand. It's the same thing with if you like the Yankees, you pretty much have to hate the Mets, and you'll go start a fight with a Mets fan because they're not a Yankees fan, they're the enemy. If you own a vet or and are into Corvettes, you pretty much have to hate Mustangs and Mustang owners. And if you're into Mustangs and you're the Mustang guy, then you hate Camaros. It's this stupid, idiotic thing. Instead of being an open-minded consumer and saying, you know what, there's a place in the market for all of these products, for all of these things. Some companies are good at some things, but not so good at others. And so I pick and choose. As an example with technology, Android for a phone is a much better platform. It's more robust. It's actually more user-friendly, despite having a lot more advanced features and flexibility and customization. It doesn't pigeonhole you into doing things either in a stupid, convoluted, long, drawn-out workaround type of way, the way that Apple does, because they think that their ideas are always the best, until about 3 years after the fact, where they realize everyone's complaining because Android's had this for 3 years, so they throw you a bone and give you that. When it comes to a phone, I prefer Android, although I have used iPhones from time to time. But when it comes to like a super portable, long-lasting, powerful laptop, the MacBook M1, the MacBook Air has them beat. When it comes to a tablet, nobody's touched, Apple when it comes to the tablet. Even the wearables experience. I may have the Samsung Watch, and it works pretty well, but it's not as good as the Apple Watch. So why would I be a guy and be a fanboy of one brand and limit my options? It always comes with a compromise. If you just choose one brand and you hate everything else and you got to go out of your way to make sure you put down anybody else who likes the other brands, which is part of the fanboy mentality, then you end up limiting your choices. You end up I guess, an attempt to stroke your ego by trying to attach yourself to whatever perceived success you see with that brand. Well, if the product isn't the best, you kind of saddle yourself with whatever limitations that comes with. So where I notice this a lot lately is in the gun and knife world. Now, granted, knife and gun guys aren't exactly the most open-minded, and a lot of them are very set in their ways. I'm a Smith guy, and the 1911 is the best gun ever made, and no other gun is worth owning. If you think that, you're a fool. But it's a good gun. But to say that it's the best and the only gun worth owning is, that's just foolish, and it's idiotic, and it's wrong. So one of the things I see a lot lately is, why do people like to hate on knives from China? And I get into this stupid debates online with people. And some of the arguments are, well, they're communist. Okay, the communist government is. I would submit that some of the elements in our current administration are bordering on communist. But the people aren't, And frankly, and I asked this question and not a single person's addressed it yet, is, okay, for you guys that are into guns and knives and stuff, and if your answer is, I will not buy a Chinese knife because communist in America, are you going to get rid of your Russian AK or SKSs that you consider to be some of the finest out there? Russia's no friend of ours. They're just as communist as China. They've certainly got as high of a body count over the years as China. Damn close to it. I think once you get up into the hundreds of millions, you kind of can stop counting at that point. So they're in that same category. So I see this inconsistent application of their logic. And so, one of the arguments was also, well, so many Chinese knives are junk. Well, if you're talking about a $5 gas station knife, yeah, a $5 gas station knife is junk, whether it's made in Cambodia or China or England or Italy or wherever. I mean, it's a cheap shit knife. It doesn't matter where it came from. The fact of the matter is that there are good quality things coming out of China. And, I look at knives like a cut jack from Steel Will, D2 steel, FRN handle, beautifully made, simple, phosphor bronze washers, flicks right open, holds an edge. It's a nice design. It's lightweight, fits in the pocket, reversible carry clip. It's $50. I think I paid $48 for it. It's a great knife for $48. Find me a US made knife with the same grinds, the same quality of steel, the same finish, the same execution, the same fit and finish, the same blade centering, the same, quality pocket clip and everything in that price range. They pretty much don't exist. If we move on to other things like the Kaiser Sheep Dog, it's like a $79 knife made in China using BD1N steel. Very good knife, micarta handle. This one, I don't remember if it has phosphor bronze washers, if that one is a bearing system or not, but man, that thing just flies open. It's a great knife. This is a good quality knife. Again, find me a US made knife that offers the same materials, the same fit and finish, the same cool designs. Another Kaiser, the Beglighter. Great knife. Again, G10, polished stainless steel liners, ball bearing pivot system, flies right open. This one, the steel is, I don't know what the damn steel is on this one. N690. Great steel for, again, like $58 or $55 or something like that. Very cool knife, sturdy, nice blade, nice design. Go to Civivi. You got the Elementum, which is excellent. The new Riffle. Green micarta, stainless steel. Beautiful design. All the edges properly beveled. The metal, all properly beveled. No sharp edges. Nice consistent finish. Deep carry pocket clip that is reversible. It's a $58 knife. Show me a US made knife that is that nice of a design, lightweight, quality materials like ball bearings and micarta and all that stuff with decent steel. In this case, it's D2 tool steel. Show me a US made knife that will offer you that design, those materials, and that quality at that price point. Doesn't exist. Looking at the Vespa, which is a copy. It's not a clone because they're not claiming that it is a Microtech and trying to fool you. But this is still a $150 knife. This is S35 VN steel. Verified that. It's legit. It's using a Microtech design, but the quality of materials and the execution with using, premium steel. Now the new ones are actually coming with M390, Bowler M390, which is a premium steel. These are great knives. It's not cheap. And I guess that's the difference. We can look at the Italian knives, but now you start, if you want to get a knife that's as nice as some of these or nicer, you certainly can, but you're going to spend a lot more money. Here's a US made Gerber, the Sudulo. It's got, I think, an S30V blade, so it's a good blade steel. It's using their version of the Axis lock from Benchmade since their patent expired. But it's got a cheap plastic handle. I mean, it's a good quality knife. It's sturdy, materials are nice, but it feels like a cheap plastic knife. If I put it up against the $58 Chinese knife, yeah, the steel is better than this, but for some people, for EDC, they're not going to notice the difference. But if I handed you these two blades and to someone who didn't, know the specs on them and said, which one do you think is the nicer feeling, the nicer material, more refined knife? They're going to look at this design and the machining, and they're going to look at the pocket clip is nicer. They're going to look at the nice micarta handle. They're going to look at the fact that it's just a more beautiful, elegant design, and they would assume that this is the higher quality knife. They wouldn't think that this one actually looks like the cheap Chinese knife. So yeah, you get into things like Heretic, which is essentially a Microtech. It's Anthony Marfione Jr., which is Anthony Marfione's son, the founder and owner of Microtech. So yeah, but this is also a $300+ knife. I've got a Sig Kiku XR. I believe this one is US made, using CTS XHP steel. Excellent knife, but it's also $189. You look at the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Yeah, you got a US made knife using S30V steel. It's a Spyderco. It's a great knife. Love this knife. Probably one of the best all-around pocket knives you can buy on the market for years now. But you're going to pay $150 for these, and you could pay more depending on if you want, micarta instead of G10 and different styles and stuff like that. You go to the Italian knives and you can say, okay, are these better than these particular Chinese knives? Well, yeah, but this is also a $199 knife. This one's $170, a Lion steel. This one is my, whatchamacallit, it's a steel will, but I have a feeling it's made by MKM in the same factory as the Lion steels. But again, you're pushing it $200. A $200 knife is going to beat a $50 or $80 knife, regardless of the country of origin. And I guess that's what my point is here, is that if you just go in and you use that fanboy mentality of, I'm just going to judge us by the country of origin. Well, I can go to a gas station and buy US-made knives that are complete shit. The fact that they're made here in the US doesn't change that. A shit cheap knife is a shit cheap knife. If you go and you spend $40, $50, $60, if you want to buy an American-made, again, I would tell you, go find me an American-made, because you can get these in micarta and stuff like that. Go find me a US-made knife in the $50 to $60 range with good D2 steel, with ball bearing pivots, with G10 or micarta. Go find one. List what they are. The list is short. When you go and you look at some of these other designs and stuff, these are really nice knives. These are excellent. If I didn't tell you they were made in China, you wouldn't know it. You look at that and go, that feels like a $100 knife. And if it was made in the States, it probably would be a $120, $130 knife. But because they are made overseas, they are able to use cheaper labor, and they are able to crank out knives that are as good as, if not more, quality compared to the comparable priced US knives. It's only when you start stepping up into, the much more expensive knives. But even then, I can go to We Knife Company or Artisan Cutlery, and I can spend $500 on a Chinese knife. And it's amazing. I mean, the quality, the fit and finish, their production knives. When you start getting into like the higher end Chinese knives, the 350 to 500 range, you're looking at something that is the quality of like US premium custom knives. I think it's very short-sighted, and I think it's idiotic. But I know it's an argument that's been raging for decades. In the 70s and early 80s, it was about Japanese cars. And even Japanese products in general, electronics and everything else. People were complaining, it's cheap Japanese crap. And maybe some of it was. But if you just assume that it all is, all of a sudden you see the products improve, and one day you wake up and you're like, gee, what happened to the US auto industry? Well, the cheaper Japanese cars, it cost, there was a study at the time, I think it was Toyota, cost them like $42 an hour. Labor, cost of materials, all that kind of stuff, benefits. It costs on average about $42 an hour to build a car. And then you looked at the comparable US cars and it was like $74 or $75 an hour to create a car that was in the same price point. And the Japanese cars outlasted them. They were better quality. They were lower maintenance. I mean, there were better products, cheaper. And now you see, when you look at a Toyota, Toyota will run circles around a Ford or whatchamacallit, or a Chevy. Doesn't keep me from buying Chevy trucks. I've actually had good luck with Chevy. But you can't argue anymore that the Japanese products, whether it be electronics, whether it be lenses, steel, I mean, they are a manufacturing powerhouse, semiconductors, all that kind of stuff. Japan has come a long way. China is where Japan was 2 or 3 decades ago. And you're starting to see the light turn on. You're starting to see some of the quality products coming out of there. And I think it's very short-sighted to just say, well, they're cheap crap. Yeah, a lot of the crap you buy at Walmart is. But if you actually go and you find that there are 20, 30 quality Chinese brands, and between them they're offering thousands of models of knives ranging from 40, $50 up to $800 or $1,000, it's very short-sighted and it's very ignorant to sit there and keep claiming that China doesn't have good products. They do. You're probably watching this on your iPhone or your iPad, which is made in, guess what? China. So you can go and buy cheap Chinese electronics tablets for $59 and they're going to fall apart and probably crash and won't reboot and the battery goes dead and won't recharge. Yeah, but if you go and buy a quality product from China, like an Apple product, it's going to work for years to come. People need to break out of this mindset because the US knife market is going to be in trouble. Everyone wants to buy American, but when you can buy better knives from elsewhere that are cheaper and better quality than the comparably priced or even slightly higher priced US knives, at some point people are going to go, well, I'm not buying the US knife. Like, the word will get out that you can go and you can buy a really nice, well-built, long-lasting, quality materials, expertly put together with good quality control blade, that if you're going to buy it here, you're going to spend twice as much. Now you can argue and say, well, I want to do it for patriotic reasons. I want to support American workers. Well, that's okay. That's a different argument, though. If your argument is just, well, if it's from China, it's crap and not worth considering, you're a fool. You don't know any better. You're stuck in your old ways. Maybe you're a little bit racist. I don't know. Again, I pose the question of people who, I wouldn't buy a Chinese knife because they're communists. Okay, what about your Russian AK? I would get us crickets. It's like, remember, Russia's no friend of ours. They're communists as well. So I'm not saying go buying knives built by ISIS, but, I go to an American, there's Americans that still profit off of these, a small business owner, or even the big online retailers, Blade HQ, Knife Center, Knife Depot, all of them. They sell a lot of these quality knives. They sell the $400, $500, $600, $700 Chinese knives that are just absolutely stunning. They've got some great stuff. So I feel like we're fighting a fanboy mentality. We're fighting an ignorance problem of people who just are stuck in the past and they're thinking, well, 20 years ago, I had a Chinese knife and it fell apart. Yeah, you bought a cheap Chinese gas station knife. If you'd bought an American-made cheap gas station knife, it also would have fallen apart. Maybe it would have lasted 3 weeks instead of 2, but it's still a crap product. You do get what you pay for. But there is a different price point when you can have cheaper labor. But even then, the prices on the Chinese knives are going up. Like I said, it used to be very unusual to see a Chinese knife over 50, $60. Now you see them up into several $100s each regularly. And those are the knives that people are buying these days. I mean, percentage of the market, yeah, there's probably a bunch of still, mouth breathers that just go and spend $6 on a gas station pocket knife. And when it wears out in 3 months, they go buy another. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about quality products where you start spending $50, $100, $200, $150. There's some really nice products out there. And I think you sell yourself short when you just allow anything from fanboy mentality to just plain ignorance because you're just into your brand and you just hate anything that's not American because it's part of your national identity and you got to let everybody know how American you are. We don't live we do now. We live in a global economy. You're watching this on a device that was made in China. And if the device wasn't, half the components in it were. Your microwave, the food you eat, like almost everything you do the parts in your car, the oil that you're burning to get your electricity and putting gas in you, that all comes from the Middle East. It comes from Brazil. It comes from, or I'm sorry, Venezuela. It comes from Russia. It comes from somewhere else. And so this notion that if it ain't from here, it sucks, that's just an ignorant way to look at the world. There's lots of good countries out there. There's lots of good people everywhere. Even in countries that have shitty governments, there's still good people working hard and cranking out good products. And those products have to get here. They get here on American ships. They're driven from distributor to American distributors, who then have to put them on trucks and hire people in the warehouse and the shipping departments to send them out on American truck drivers to get them to your local retailer, which is where I buy some of these. From a small business right here in Georgia that sells them, and they're making money, and their employees are making money and paying taxes on their revenue and stuff like that. And I'm paying sales tax on this. So the fact that it originally came from somewhere else, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're buying our products, we're buying their products. Everything we use is coming from somewhere else anyway. So to sit here and like say, well, I'll buy Russian AKs and I'll buy German this and I'll buy UK that and I'll buy something else from another country, but when it comes to my knives, I gotta have American. Okay, I mean, buy what you want. But if your reasoning is, well, it's because it's from this other place, it's a disingenuous argument. It doesn't hold up because the device that you're likely arguing with me about on this likely came from the same country that you're saying you shouldn't buy shit from. So, don't know what to tell you. But for the people that say, is a knife, if it's from China, is it automatically crap? Hell no. Depends on what you buy. Just like American products. That's the point here. So check out some of the brands. Go to Blade HQ and pull up folding knives. And on the left-hand side, you can sort by steel type and, all the different price points and blade lengths. Sort by the country of origin. Pick the $100 to $250 category or the $250 to $500 and look at some of the knives out there. They're amazing. They're better than most of the stuff you get here in the States. They've got over 1 billion people over there. They have gone through a technological revolution. That's a high-tech country. Yeah, maybe in the rural areas it's not, but they've got big cities that dwarf anything here in the States, and they've got better infrastructure than we have. They have cutting-edge technology, and they've got a lot of workers that work hard. When you put that all together, you can get a great product at a good price point. So anyway, that was my little, my mini rant on, if it's from China, does it automatically mean it sucks? No. I mean, I've done this in another video where I took one of my Microtechs. Right now I'm out of Microtechs. I've got a couple of the Heretics. I actually like their designs a little better. But I took apart the Vespa and I took apart my Microtech and got in there with the camera and looked at the machining and the quality and say, okay, well, it looks nice. They polished on the outside, but is it all rough and shitty on the inside? And it wasn't. You'd look at them, and again, if you didn't see the name on it, you'd have to be a real aficionado or expert to be able to say, you know what, I think that's the Microtech and I think that's the Chinese copy. When you look at the knives and stuff like that, I mean, the way they work, the quality of the materials and stuff, they are on par. This one feels a little nicer, but it also costs twice as much. I think I paid $154 for this, and this was $329 or $319. It's a great knife. Love the Heretic. And that's the thing. You can like this and say, you know what? I do like paying for American quality, and I do like supporting Americans, and I like the higher end product. But you can do that and go, you know what? I get a really sweet deal on an EDC that doesn't break the bank. And hey, if it wears out in 10 years, it wears out in 10 years. It was $58. But in the meantime, it's beautiful, nice materials. It just feels awesome in the hand and it works real well. It's okay. It's kind of like we were talking on one of my podcasts about the I almost said Pink Floyd, the George Floyd verdict. It's like we're in this tribalism. You either support George Floyd and he's a martyr and a hero and to be, he should be on a mural on every town hall, or you support the cops and you're a scumbag. It's like, no, you can say that the cop was wrong and dirty and used too much force and completely fucked up. And you can also say George Floyd was a scumbag. He was a criminal and a thug and a drug addict and tried to murder or held a woman up by pointing a gun at her pregnant stomach and robbed her and went to jail for that, as well as for selling coke and stuff like that. And he was high and passed bad money. And he resisted arrest And that led to the officer getting involved, and it escalated, and he used too much force and caused a cardiac event. It's okay to say that. It's not one or the other. You can say the cop was a scumbag and needs to go to jail because he inadvertently killed somebody. And you can say George Floyd is not a hero. He was a scumbag and he contributed to his own demise. Both statements can be true at the same time. And I apply that philosophy to I love the nicer things. I love the higher quality products from Italy or Japan or US or, whatever. But I still like a good deal. I can still appreciate this. I like the Mustang and the Corvette. I carry Glocks and SIGs, and those are my primary go-to guns. But I also like the Taurus. And I'll pick it up and go to the range with it, and occasionally I'll carry it and stuff, especially their revolvers. I've never had a problem with a Taurus revolver. But you talk to some guy on the internet, oh, I heard they suck, they all break, they all this and all that. And usually it's like, well, they sold 2 million of them and 11 people had a problem with it. And so that 11 people, that's now all of it. It's like when a company caves in marketing, when they say, oh, we had complaints. It's like, we had 2.2 million viewers and 50 of them called up complaining. And so everybody's upset. No. 50 people have 50 Karens that have nothing better to do. They're upset, but most of the people don't give a shit. But that's how people think, They take the exception and they try to make that the rule, and the numbers just don't support that. So should you trust a Chinese knife? It depends. If it's a $6 no-name brand with crappy steel you're buying from a crappy retailer at a garage at a gas station, no, it's going to be a piece of crap. But that knife would be a piece of crap no matter what country it came from. You can buy cheap shit that's US. You can buy cheap shit that's China. You can also buy really nice stuff in the US, and you can buy really nice stuff from China. You just got to know what brands to go with, do your research, and also the price point's going to help define that. So anyway, end of rant. Buy whatever the hell you want, but if you think that just being from China, because it's from China, that one criteria is what defines whether it's good or crap, you're a fool.